In alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the hadiths from Sahih Muslim. We're in Kitab el-Sawm, which is the book of fasting. And today we're going to speak about the abrogation of fasting or feeding the poor. And we're going to also speak about what to do on behalf of a deceased person who owed some days of fasting. And first of all, a lot of Muslims will read the Quran. And again, just like with the hadiths, you cannot read the Quran on your own and then think you're going to walk away understanding it. Just like you cannot read the hadiths and walk away thinking you're going to understand it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in order to understand, you have to learn from the people of knowledge, the people who do have the proper understanding of the Quran and the hadith. For example, you read the verse in the Quran where Allah speaks about how if a person can fast, you can either fast or feed a poor person. So a lot of people look at that verse of the Quran and they think, oh, well, I don't have to fast Ramadan. If I want to, I can choose to feed the poor. Well, guess what? That's one of the verses of the Quran that was abrogated. What does it mean to be abrogated? It means it was canceled out. Allah replaced it with something better. Where Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning as for those who can fast but do not, the expiation is to feed 60 poor people. That has been abrogated and replaced with whoever witnesses the month of Ramadan shall have to fast the whole month. And one of the companions explains this verse. He says, during the lifetime of the Prophet, when Ramadan was first revealed to us, we had the choice. We had the choice to either fast or feed the poor. But then Allah sent down another verse to cancel that choice out, saying whoever lives to witness this month should fast during it. You don't have the choice to either fast or feed a poor person. Does everybody understand? And the reason why Allah changed that was because, again, fasting. Allah imposed fasting upon us as a means of making us better people, more righteous people. Because when you're fasting, you're learning to control your desires. You're learning what your strengths and weaknesses are, and thus how to work on them, how to better them. Okay, it's easy to feed somebody else, but it's hard to restrain yourself. So Allah took that option away. So no longer do we have the option of fasting or not. Does everybody understand that? So when Ramadan comes around, you can't sit there and say, well, in this verse, Allah says I can either fast or feed somebody. Well, I'm going to choose to not fast. Well, that verse was abrogated, replaced with the latter. Also, for those of us who legally have to break our fast, say that you're experiencing a sickness or something during Ramadan and you have to break your fast. Well, we can make those days up, but we have till the beginning of the next Ramadan to make up any missed days. You do not have the rest of your life. You only have till the beginning of the next Ramadan to make up whatever days you missed due to sickness or traveling or whatnot. And then you read the hadith, and by the way, you should try to make those days up as soon as possible, because you don't know when you're going to die. You can die tomorrow. You can die today. And you don't want to die with that debt on you. Fasting Ramadan is a debt that we owe to Allah. So you don't want to postpone it. You want to try to make those days up as soon as possible. But a lot of people will read the hadith about Aisha. Aisha tells us, I had to complete some of the days of Ramadan, but I could only do it during the month of Shaban because of my obligations to the Prophet. She said, in fact, all of the wives, for those of us who had our to make up our days due to menses or whatnot, we could only do it during the month of Shaban. Why? Because they were busy helping, because the Muslims were fighting against the unbelievers in those other months. And Aisha was a nurse. She was on the battlefield taking care of the sick. So were the other wives. The only time that the Muslims had really to make up their days from fasting was the month of Shaban. So that hadith does not mean that we should wait till Shaban and do all this fasting. A lot of Muslims misinterpret the meaning of this. There's a lot of Muslims that wait until the month of Shaban to complete their fast. This is bad, guys. Because what guarantee do you have that you're going to live to see the month of Shaban? The Prophet did a lot of fasting in the month of Shaban. Aisha tells us because it was the only month that he had to make up fast or to do any fasting. He was busy fighting the rest of those other months of the year. So this is all the hadiths that you read about the virtues of fasting Shaban. Just like all the hadiths you read about the virtues of fasting the day of Ashura, there's reasons behind that. The hadiths about fasting the day of Ashura was before Ramadan was revealed. And the hadiths about the virtues of fasting Shaban were revealed because this is the only month the Prophet and the companions had to fast. This was their last chance during the year to complete voluntary fast. So he told the people the virtues of doing voluntary fast. This is a month of peace here. We're not fighting against the Quraysh. We're not fighting against the unbelievers. So now we can do some good deeds. Let's fast. Does everybody understand? So those hadiths do not mean that you should wait till Shaban to make up your fast. It's the only month that the Prophet and the companions had. You got the whole year because you are not fighting. You are not that busy. Try to make them days up as soon as you can because life is not guaranteed. Because when you die, if a person dies owing days to be made up, your family has to make them up for you. And again, I tell the Muslims every year, when we have Ramadan, I announce all the time, keep a track of how many days you have to make up. Because if you should die and you have not made those days up, then your family will make them up for you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if anyone dies in a state that he had to complete some of his fast from Ramadan, then his family must fast on his behalf. So keep a record. Let your husband, let your children, let your sisters and brothers know how many days you owe. So if you die, they can fast for you. We have a hadith whereas a woman came to the Prophet and she said, "O Prophet of Allah, my mother died. And she still owes some fast from Ramadan." The Prophet said to her, "Don't you know that if a debt was due, wouldn't you pay it?" She said, "Yes, I would pay her debts." And then the Prophet said, "Well, fasting Ramadan is a debt owed to Allah. And Allah deserves his payment. So make up the days on behalf of your mother." Okay? This is why, again, you don't want to put off making your days up till the end of the year, because you're not guaranteed to live that long. And then we have another hadith, excuse me, whereas a man came to the Prophet, telling the Prophet that his mother had died. And the Prophet told him the same thing, make up her fast for her. So you learn from that hadith that a man can make up the fast of a woman. And the other hadith, a woman can make up the fast of her man too. Another woman came to the prophet and said, "O prophet of Allah, my mother died and she swore that she would fast, but she didn't live to fulfill that oath. So shall I make it up for her?" The prophet said, "Yes." So you learn from that hadith, even if a person swore an oath that they were going to fast on a certain day or something, and they didn't live to fulfill it, then you have to make it up for them. Is that clear? So again, keep track of your missed days of Ramadan. If you swear to do a fast, make sure you let your family know it. So if something happened, they can make it up for you. And just as your family can make up the deceased person's fast, Ramadan is not the only debt. Hajj is a debt too that's owed to Allah. So if a person dies and that person never made Hajj before, then that person's family can make Hajj on that person's behalf as well. Okay? So those are important things to understand. What can you do? A lot of people say, "Sister Layla, my mother died, or my sister died, or someone close to me died. What can I do on behalf of that person?" Well, you can give in charity for that person. Give $100 or $1,000 in charity on behalf of that person. And also any debts that person has, pay them off. Financial debts, and also their spiritual debts. Okay? And finally for today, guys, and I want you to remember, if a person is fasting, making up a fast from Ramadan, you don't break it. If a person invites you to their home for dinner and you are making up a day from Ramadan, you tell them, "I'm sorry, I can't because I am fasting." Does everybody understand? Because Ramadan is not a voluntary fast. It's an obligatory one. And you can't break it. When you're making the days up, you have to keep that day. And that you're making it up, you can't break it unless you have a valid reason. And if a person comes to you when you're fasting trying to pick an argument or a fight with you, you remind them. You tell them, "I am fasting." By saying it out loud, not only are you reminding them, but you are also reminding yourself. And you'll get the strength from Allah to not fall into that argument or that debate with that person. So thus you can see, guys, we learn a lot from these wonderful hadiths, which is why I love the hadiths. You learn, first of all, that when the month of Ramadan, when fasting during the month of Ramadan was first revealed to the Muslims as an obligation, they had the choice. They could either fast for that month or feed a poor person for that month. But Allah quickly changed that. He said, "No longer am I offering you the choice. Now you have no other choice but to fast. You cannot decide, I'm not going to fast instead I'm going to feed a person. You have to fast unless you fall in the category of being sick or something." Okay? And also from these hadiths, we learn that you have until the beginning of the next Ramadan to make up any of your missed days. And you should make those days as soon as possible. All the hadiths where Aisha and the Prophet Muhammad speak about the virtues of fasting the month of Shaban, understand that does not mean that you wait till Shaban to make up your fast. The month of Shaban was the only month they had to fast because they were busy the rest of the year fighting against the unbelievers. So the only reason why Aisha did not make up her fast sooner was because she was unable to. They were too busy out on the battlefield. The reason why the Prophet didn't do a lot of voluntary fasts the other months is because he was unable to. They were fighting or whatever. So don't wait till Shaban. You make those fasts up as soon as possible, because you never know when Allah will have death come knocking on your door. And also you learn that if a person should die owing fast, Make sure that you make them up for that person. Keep a list of the fasts that you owe. So if you should die, your sons, your daughters, your grandkids, or even your friends can fast those days on your behalf to make them up. And remember, a man can fast on behalf of a deceased woman, and a woman can fast on behalf of a deceased man. Just like a man can make Hajj on behalf of a deceased woman, and a woman can make Hajj on behalf of a deceased man. Either way. Also remember that if a person has sworn an oath to fast and that person dies having not fulfilled that oath, you can fast that day on behalf of them too. And when a person is fasting, remember to guard your temper. If someone comes to you trying to pick a fight with you, remind them that you are fasting. And also, if a person invites you to dinner, tell them that you are fasting, because the making up the days of Ramadan is an obligation. It's not a voluntary fast. That means you have to fulfill it. You can't break it without just cause. Okay. On that note, we'll stop right here for today. Tomorrow, I'll ask questions to make sure you guys understand the meaning of these hadiths. I also want to thank everybody for participating in the classes. You all are getting so much better with the quizzes. I am very impressed with my students, and I am very impressed with those of you on Facebook too, because I notice that when you are answering the questions now for the quizzes, you are giving the hadiths as your evidence. That means you are putting in your heart the meaning of these hadiths. And once they're in your heart, they then go into practice. And that's what makes you the strong believer. So I'm very proud of all of you. And I need you guys to continue to come here. And also for those of you who have sent in donations to help pay for our website expenses, may Allah reward you all immensely, because you're helping to keep our website on the internet. You know, I was thinking about closing the website because I can't afford to pay for it, and we weren't getting that many donations. But alhamdulillah, we're getting more donations thanks to you, brothers and sisters from Facebook, as well as my regular students here. So continue to send in your donations to support this dawah effort, and think of all the blessings you're getting. You're getting the rewards that Allah is giving me. You're getting the rewards of Sheikh Morsi for being my teacher. You're getting the rewards of his teacher. And also every Muslim that listens to these lectures, that comes to these classes and walks away having learned something, having bettered themselves, Allah will give you that reward too, because you are the reason for that. You're keeping this dawah effort alive. And remember, that's such a good deed. And giving knowledge of Islam, that's the best deed that we can share with someone. That's the best charity that you can share. So we'll stop right here. If you guys have any questions or comments, if there's a hadith or something that you're not clear about, you can go ahead and type it on the screen. People on Facebook too, I can see your typing your comments too. If there's a question you have or something you need more clarification on, go ahead and type it. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.